He's been in radio since as far back as he can remember, and every day he's reaching out to the local community. You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on community service and radio, and we're visiting Matt Sedota. Good morning, Matt.
Morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming in. You know, I thought it was important for viewers to get a feel of what radio is really like, and also to meet a local community servant. And
I'm glad to be here, and yes, you're right. You know, with 99.9% of the people have a radio somewhere in their house.
Right.
I'd love to be able to carry the banner of our industry.
Absolutely. And of course you carried that banner not only for radio but television and all other broadcasters for either a year or a couple of years as president of the South Carolina Broadcasters. So
in 1995 and 96 I was president of the association, the state association, which as you know, having been involved in it, it's a very aggressive, very well-respected broadcast association outside of the state, in Washington and in a lot of the areas of the country. It's well respected. Got a great organization, good staff, very loyal members, and I was fortunate and privileged to serve as president for a year.
Did you have you continued to stay active with?
I have been on a number of committees over the years, and it has been a passion of mine. It does a couple of things. It keeps us connected with other members of our industry, which is sometimes hard to do, and it keeps me connected with some really good people. The broadcast industry is filled with some wonderful people that have been good, close friends and mentors, and so yes, I keep involved in a number of different committees.
So much of what happens in broadcast, whether it's TV or radio or TV, happens from Washington or comes out of Washington. Did you make a lot of trips up to Washington to visit NAB or the FCC?
I have done a little of that, and it is an eye-opening experience. The association does a trip once a year to Washington to lobby, which is basically visiting our congressmen and senators to just talk about the issues that affect us. But there have also been conferences, and I have made a trip to the FCC a number of years ago when there was some legislation pending that affected all broadcasters, and it's a little hairy up there. You know, the FCC is a large government bureaucracy, so you don't walk in and things are done.
Right.
It's a fascinating experience. You know, for me, it was really a lot of fun to walk around the Capitol and go through the tunnels beneath the Capitol and take the subway car, and the senator might be sitting across from you, could be from Oregon, and it's something everybody should do to get a feel for the workings of our country. And
absolutely.
You know, I'm not sure traveling to Washington and visiting with a senator gets a whole lot done, but it sure is fun to walk into Senator Holling's office and have a half-hour chat on what's important to you, and it's fun.
That's what those folks are supposed to be doing, representing people.
They are.
Particularly the congressmen and women.
And every one of them is responsive, and they're very genuine, and either political party. You can tell almost immediately those that have had some real impact and that have had some seniority up there. There's just an awareness, and those that are just starting to make their way. But it's something everybody should do, because there's a sense of pride that comes saying, you know, this is our country, and it's just wonderful.
You're right, man. I was actually in Washington last Wednesday and Thursday. Went up for dinner last Wednesday night, and then the National Prayer Breakfast last Thursday morning.
Sure.
I drove back last Thursday. But it was so exciting to be there at the Washington Hilton. And, of course, we had to be there at 6 a.m., literally, the hotel, even though the breakfast wasn't scheduled to start at 8 because of all the heavy security in the Capitol.
Oh, yeah.
They were shutting down Connecticut Avenue at about 6:45 with the president traveling from the White House down to the Hilton. And, of course, it's amazing to see the security levels in that city.
Yeah.
Truly
Has to
amazing.
Be.
Absolutely, of course.
And yet it still keeps working, and business is being done.
That's right. What about yourself, Matt? Are you originally from the area?
No, I like to think of myself as a transplanted Southerner. I'm not sure if there's ever a point where you become fully accepted, but it's been 21 years.
21 years?
It's been 21 years, and we moved down from western New York, and in 1983, early in 1983, we actually first came to the beach in November of '82. And, I'd like to think I've made the transition. You've never heard me say, this is how we did it back up north?
No.
Because I don't remember how we did it back up north. So it's the adopted South for me, and I love it.
Yeah. Golly, man. That is? Now, do you still have family in New York?
There's family in Western New York. I've got a relatively large family. There's 8 kids in the family, so all but 2 of us are still there. And now there must be 15 grandchildren and extended cousins and in-laws, and so they're mostly still there.
You have 7 brothers and sisters?
Yes, I do.
You are kidding.
Yeah, it was a big family.
Golly.
Yeah, they don't grow them that way anymore, do they?
No, not regularly. I'm sure in some households, yeah.
Yeah, it was built-in party every day.
Golly, man. And where do you go in that?
I'm the second oldest. I have an older brother, and then there were 5 girls, and then the youngest is my youngest brother.
That's amazing. And who's the other one that's not in Western New York?
My older brother's in Texas.
So the 2 of you all, the first 2 out of the womb, are out of the state as well.
That's right. Right. Everybody else is still there.
That's fascinating.
Close by. I mean, they're not all right there. But.
Of course, in Western New York, that's a pretty direct travel trip down to Myrtle Beach. Do they ever come down?
We see them occasionally. Once a year, somebody will come down, but it's a long, hard drive, and the older I get, the harder the drive is. You can fly there easily. I mean, you fly into Buffalo, or fly into Cleveland, or fly into, I guess we've flown into Rochester, too. But it's a bit of a trip. We go, or they come. So,
what brought you down originally 21 years ago? Was it?
I worked at a radio station, the original WNMB, in North Myrtle Beach. I came down when I first came down, the job was to put an AM station on the air. At the time, it was WGSN. It is now WNMB AM. Right. A little bit of an odd timing. In 1982 and 3, people were putting FM stations on the air, but we had a license here for an AM, and so I came down to put the AM radio station on the air, and we've grown since then into mostly moving away from the AMs to the FM. AM, unfortunately, is not all that prominent today, but some people are still doing well with it. So I came down to work in the radio business, and here I am still doing it.
For viewers who grew up in that AM era, has that, obviously the transition to FM, what are the primary differences between AM and FM?
Well, to the general consumer, the FM signal is much cleaner. It's much less susceptible to variations in weather, or, if you're driving down the road and you go through a tunnel, the AM stations basically disappear. The FMs don't. They're much more stable. I'm not an engineer. I could pretend to tell you, well, one is amplitude and the other's frequency, and if you change the waves, I'm not sure how accurate that would be. But AM stations tend to be a little less clarity. That's changing. And in the not too distant future, I think you'll see very comparable quality of signals when you start looking at digital transmission, and that's the next generation.
Right. How's that transition going to happen? And that will happen for both AM and FM broadcasters.
Again, not being a technical expert, but yes, there'll be AM digital, FM digital, and theoretically it will eliminate all variations, and it would simply be a clean digital signal. It's coming at some point. I don't think there are many radio stations yet that have invested in any of the equipment. As you know, television's made that switch.
Slowly.
And it's expensive, and I think radio will watch and wait. Nothing has been approved yet. Nothing has been implemented as a standard. So it's still got a ways to go. And practically speaking, I think 99% of the people would have a hard time listening to the radio and saying, "Oh, that is digital. That's wonderful." Most of the radios today, especially an FM signal, is pretty darn clean, and it gives us everything we need. To go to the next step, it's not like television where you'll see widescreens and high definition.
Right. Will the same channels be used, Matt?
I'm not sure. I think that there will be some changes in channels. Again, it gets real technical and it starts swimming. I spend most of my days worrying about today.
Yes, that's right. It's so important to lay out. It's good to look to the future, but so important.
It is, and that's why you have organizations like the Broadcasters Association in South Carolina that does keep us on the edge. And at some point, there'll be time to look at that. It's starting to be more of a prevalent issue. They were very much in the forefront with television starting to make that transition, and I think it was a help. But I think the general consumer is going to be fine. When you look at it, too, portable radios, things you take with you. The clarity of those things are never going to be spectacular. So in some ways, it's the lowest common denominator.
No, I hate to even ask you, Matt. It seems kind of funny, but we think about there's some satellite radio that's come on the scene. Is that
Boo hiss?
Yeah, boo hiss.
Boo hiss.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sirius and XM. Has that
Right.
had any impact on?
Not yet.
Right.
I think that there's an audience and there's an appeal for certain segments of the population.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're on the road a lot
Right.
and you
Truck
want to listen
driver.
sure, that may have some appeal to you. Radio's strength has always been, and I believe it will continue to be, its localism.
Right.
You know, people listen to the radio for more than music, although music is the vast majority of what we program.
Mm-hmm.
People listen because of the personality, because of the weather or the news or the information
Mm-hmm.
that's saying, here's what's happening, in our case, in the Myrtle Beach market. I think that if you look at things like some of the music channels that are available on cable, they're nice and some people take advantage of them, but they've never had the impact
Right.
because it doesn't have the programming. Radio, in my experience, and having done it for 21 years in a market, it works because there's a sense of personality and ownership from the listener. They like a radio station for the music and everything that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
If satellite radio is just music, it's lacking something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my experience is it's the difference between a bowl of vanilla ice cream, which can be very delicious. I love vanilla ice cream. Or vanilla ice cream with a little chocolate sauce and some sprinkles on top and maybe some coconut and then the cherry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what local radio is able to do for you. And obviously it'll have an impact. I think that so far it's been relatively minimal.
And of course, for you, you've served some locales very well. I mean, and continue to do that.
Well, we try to.
When you think about, I think about the transition from 105.9 from primarily serving one area,
That's right.
North Myrtle Beach area, for instance, to really serving a much larger area.
Years and years ago, 20-some-odd years ago, the WNMB original signal was very much a North Myrtle Beach radio station.
Right.
It was very
Right.
much for that end of the beach. But you also have to remember 20-some-odd years ago, or 25 years ago, there was a clear delineation between North Myrtle Beach and Myrtle Beach.
Right.
Restaurant Row had a few restaurants, but there was no Colonial Mall, there was no Barefoot Landing, there was no Walmart, there was none of this in between. There was very much, I left North Myrtle Beach, I drive, and then I get to Myrtle Beach. And if you talk to some of the locals, they'll tell you, going to North Myrtle Beach was a trip.
Oh, yeah.
We planned it a week ahead of time. We're heading up to the other end of the beach. So the station filled that role.
Right.
As the beach grew and all of the municipalities sort of merged in terms of, where does when start and when stop, we had to grow.
Right.
And then over the years, we've changed ownerships and formats to the point now where we actually have two signals to cover all of the area.
And when you say all of the area, Horry and Georgetown County,
Horry
are
and
the two
Georgetown
counties,
County
right?
and Brunswick County. Brunswick's very important to us. As an easy listening radio station, which is what our format is, it is important for us to be in the areas where our potential audience is. And Brunswick County is very strong in terms of those types of listeners that like easy listening.
Oh, yeah.
As is Horry County and Georgetown County. Listen, I'd love to be, there's a radio station, I think, I think it's Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's a 250,000 watt radio station.
No way.
One of those
I thought
grandfathered
100,000
in.
was the, oh, right.
Yeah, no, there are very few. And I thought, wow, for 250,000 watts, you'd hear me in Greenville.
Right.
I mean, it'd be pretty exciting. But those don't come anymore. So you do
Yeah.
what you can to maximize your coverage.
There is that Class C status, and I believe there's one in our market up in Dillon, WEGX, that Eagle 92.9, which can go up to 1,981 feet or so, and
Something like that, yeah,
serve
at
at
height.
100,000
Right.
watts.
And it covers everything.
Right.
The problem you have with that is that really somebody in Greenville doesn't really care what's happening on radio in Myrtle Beach.
Right.
The weather forecasts aren't accurate. None
Sure.
of that makes a lot of sense.
There you go again, back to localism.
It's localism.
Which is great.
That's right. When people connect with a radio station, when they connect with us, it's about what's happening here, whether it's an advertiser they're interested in or an event that's happening here or the weather forecast. And as you know, it's what's important to them. We try to look at the programming of our radio station as what's important to a listener today. And sometimes it's what's happening in Iraq, but more often than not, it's what time do the polls open up?
Right,
And,
right.
what time is the show at the Carolina Opry tonight? It's local.
As you know, of course, for the broadcasters, we serve 3 radio markets, a good chunk of the Fayetteville market, all of Florence, and all of the Myrtle Beach market.
Right.
So it can be difficult On the news side, for TV 13 and 15, who produce
How do you cover?
How do you have a story that would be of appeal to folks in Laurinburg as it would in Sac-Castille?
Sure. If you sit down and watch the news, sometimes you're saying, well, why are we covering a story in Laurinburg?
Right.
I've never been to Laurinburg.
Right.
And vice versa. Who cares about what's happening at the beach?
Uh-huh.
But that's Myrtle Beach. That's the market. That's this area. It's a conglomeration of a lot of different areas with a lot of people that are from a lot of different areas.
Sure. What about some of the other, when we think about the Chamber of Commerce, you've held a heck of a lot of different positions within the Chamber of Commerce.
I've done a lot of things. They keep trying to bring some new things in. I'll say, no, right now I'm going to stick to what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've served as chair of the Sun Fund Festival.
Right.
I've been on the board in a number of capacities over the years. I've been the chairman for Can-Am Days for 5-6 years now. I've worked well with a lot of people. Had a great deal of respect, and I considered him a friend when Ashby Ward was there. Worked with Marilyn Tuning for many, many years.
Right.
I think the world of Brad Dean is the new chairman over there.
Sure.
So I've done a lot of things with the chamber over the years, and we'll always continue to support them. I have a strong belief that a community is strong because people work together. I can't tell you that because I'm a member of a chamber, it does this for my business. I can tell you, though, that by being a member of the chamber, it keeps us connected to what's happening to other people, and it's subtle things that make it work, and I love it.
In Chambers of Commerce, whether it's here or in Florence or in Lumberton or anywhere else, it's just that ability to connect.
That's right.
Businesses, a good networking.
It's exactly right. I've met more people and know more people because of the membership in the Chamber of Commerce, whether it's going to an event or whether it's being involved in a Can-Am Days or simply looking at a newsletter. There has to be a unifying force. I think that we aren't going to survive unless we have a unifying force.
Matt, did you always know you wanted to be in radio? Did you know this in high school, junior high? When did you figure out you had a knack?
It's sort of interesting. My father was in radio from his high school days. Actually put on an original AM radio station in Western New York, and I never really thought about it. He was always there, and I sort of had this awareness of radio, and being in a radio station was always somewhat natural. It wasn't a full-time job for him. He was a speech pathologist and worked nights, weekends.
Right.
That was his thing. And I went to college to be a commercial artist, and I think the first commercial art class I took convinced me that that's not something I want to do. When the first professor looked and had to come up with some jar of abstract stuff and to describe it, and I said, I just wanted to draw like Norman Rockwell. So I switched to education, and then switched to education and communication, and started working at the college radio station, and really found a passion for it. And for somebody who loves music and loves the entertainment world, it's great because we tell ourselves every day we're not in the brain surgery business, we're in the entertainment business, and it's fun. If we're not having fun in our business, then we need to get out. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of businesses that are fun, but we're having fun.
Yeah, and if you're not having fun, the listeners can tell.
Absolutely.
Right.
I go to work every day and we play music.
Right.
And I'm playing music on my radio station that I grew up with, that I love. A couple weeks ago, a new Harry Connick Jr. CD was out. I said, what? I get to play this first.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is. I love it. I like that song. I don't like that song. I mean, who gets to do that?
Wow,
I mean, it's fun. We give things away. Hey, call me, be the fifth caller. I'll give you tickets to the Carolina Opry. Everybody loves you. Everybody's excited about it. Why shouldn't they be? It's fun.
That is good. Yeah. So you're on air still, Matt?
I do an air shift. I'm on in the afternoon. I don't use my given name. 20 some odd years ago, I started using the name Scott Richards.
Is that right?
Yes, and for no real reason other than I had to change my name.
Yeah.
My dad was Ray Richards on the air, and my middle name is Scott. And I said, well, Scott Richards sounds okay to me. Yeah. So I've continued ever since. It's just been the name. People often ask me, so why don't you use your real name? And there is no real good reason other than Scott Richards is always the on-air persona. So from 2 until 6 every afternoon, I'm playing disc jockey, which is different now than it used to be. I used to actually have to queue up the records and take the commercial tapes and put them in, and now it's pretty much start and stop the computer.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that transition, Matt. We've got about 5 minutes. When you think about that transition from actually queuing it up, and now computers have had a dramatic impact on radio.
What's sort of sad for me as I get older, and I don't think of myself as old, but some days I feel real old. There are announcers, we don't call them disc jockeys anymore, air personalities in my station and in the market that have never touched anything but a computer and a radio station.
No.
We started with records and then moved to CDs. That was a very short amount of time. Carts, you may recall, which looked like an 8-track tape, was a big part of it. But when I first started, you took a record and you put it on the turntable that was covered with felt, and you queued it up, and you'd start it and you'd let it go by hand, and you had 2.5 minutes to get the next one ready, and 2.5 minutes for the next one. That's why songs like American Pie were so popular. 6.5 minutes, I can use a bathroom break. And now it's all pre-programmed in the computer on hard drives, and it's not quite as simple as start and stop, but it's pretty much click, click, click. So, and on the other hand, it's so much easier. You don't worry about it. It'll just run.
But you still have to get in there and give that localism.
Sure, you've got to announce the weather, and you've got to announce the songs and the promotions that you're doing. So, it's still local, and it's very high-tech, and it's still a lot of fun.
And this is indicative of all radio stations. Let's say our listeners or our viewers in the PD or in southeastern North Carolina are listening to stations up there.
Sure, they're using computers.
Right.
There are a few stations that aren't doing it, but that's very, very few. Most of them are on some form of an automation system that the hard drives are massive. They can store 5,000 songs without missing a beat. So I mean, instead of rummaging through records and trying to find that record, it's click, alphabet, there's the song, load it up. Good to go.
Matt, I saw you all had a great ratings book, this last book that came out.
We did.
Congratulations.
We were very happy. I can say with all confidence that we're tied for, but we are the #1 station in town. That's an overall 12+.
Right.
Our audience, yes, it tends to be on the older side, but in terms of sheer numbers, we tied for #1, which is nice.
Yeah, and is that in all day parts, or how does that work?
Well,
is that the morning show?
No, technically speaking, that's the Monday through Sunday, 6 a.m. to midnight. That's the broad base look. Now, if you start slicing it in terms of a morning show or middays or afternoons, everything changes then.
No, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, but it's been very consistent for us over the years. The station is fortunately programmed for an audience that's here. This part of the country is a retirement community, and it has a lot of people over the age of 50 that are looking for something different, and we're obviously fulfilling that need. And I love it. I mean, the audience, I got to say, for this station is the most passionate, responsive, wonderful. I mean, today's Friday. I think Monday, somebody brought us a batch of chocolate peanut butter cookies. That just doesn't happen. It's just a wonderful thing for people to say.
A listener came by, found the radio station, came by.
They had won something from us a while back and said, I just wanted to thank you, and brought us this batch of, I didn't get any, unfortunately radio stations, goodies vanish quickly.
Right.
But it sure smelled good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they look good, too. They were saying, look, inside the peanut butter. A listener from Conway brought us this and that happens occasionally. It's really wonderful. It's just a wonderful, wonderful audience. I love them to death.
It seems like a job that everyone's yearning for. Does everyone want to be on radio?
Everybody thinks they want to be on radio. They forget that there is work to it. I mean, we have to sell advertising, and we have to compete with other media, and you have to generate revenue, and you have to pay bills, and there are technical worries, and we are governed by the FCC, so there are a lot of legalistic issues, and it's work. But when it comes down to it, and we're playing that song, and somebody calls and says that was a beautiful song, who was that? How can you feel but wonderful? It's just great.
Golly, it is amazing. Now, are you constantly redoing your playlist? Are you constantly looking at songs?
Absolutely.
There was the guy, Jerry Lee, up there at WBB in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Who talked about, I've got 250 songs, that's all I play, I don't make changes. If people like listening to my music, they're going to keep coming
There
back.
are stations that do it that way, that are very restricted, that are very corporate, where the corporate playlist is, these are the songs you're allowed to play, and play them over and over again. We're one of the mom and pops of the world, and we make our own decisions. We have a consultant who works with us out of Seattle, that a company that's very well versed in our format, but we make the decisions. So yes, we're constantly looking for music, and we're constantly taking some out and putting some in. We play thousands of songs, and we try to rely on everything but personal taste, because we all have our own personal taste. You look for mass appeal. As I mentioned, Harry Connick Jr. has a new CD out. There are a couple of songs on there that probably will show up occasionally. Now, remember, we're not a top 40 station, so we're not following the charts. But over the course of a year, there are some things, Josh Groban, a Michael Bublé, young artists that come out with new CDs, Diana Krall. There's music out there that is new, that fits the standards format that we play. So it is great. I mean, I like to when Les Mis was here last week, I like to say, we're probably the only station in town that actually plays some songs from Les Mis.
Right.
Not from the soundtrack, but the Barbra Streisands of the world, the Neil Diamonds. They've recorded some of those songs. Like, we're playing that because it's all great music.
Mm-hmm. Listen to that. Those are great
our
words.
slogan, here's our slogan. It's we're the station where the good songs have gone.
Yes. Oh, that's great,
Yeah.
Matt. Good for you.
I love it.
We got to wrap, and I just think when you think of the inspirations for you on air, maybe your dad was an inspiration.
Well, certainly he was an inspiration, knowing that he was on the radio. Other inspirations in radio. I'm not sure I can give you the exact names.
Or in life, Matt. How about inspirations for you in general? We got to wrap.
Well, my grandfather probably. Most of all, he was a worker. He was a barber, simple man, but worked harder than anybody I ever knew, and loved to work. And loved being in that barber shop. And I mean, to this day, every 2 weeks, the Main Street barber shop in North Myrtle Beach, that's me. Got to spend some time there. So, and he's a positive, happy person too. So that would probably fit the definition of an inspiration.
He picked up the Scott Richards name from his dad. That was a name that had been handed down. His dad got interested in radio a long time ago as a part-time gig, but still that excitement of being involved early on and being able to really reach out to the community to let you know what's happening in your community all the time. It's guys like Matt Sedota or Scott Richards on air that are constantly reaching out to let you know what's happening, where all the good songs have gone.
Great, you got it.
That's great. Matt, thanks so much for being with us
Greg,
this
thank
morning.
you. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Matt Sedota and his great commitment to localism for making today's Carolina People so special.